All right, brothers and sisters, I've been seeing quite a few videos about China, and there's this one channel in particular that was glorifying them like, oh my gosh, they're so more advanced. America needs to catch up. We're living like a third world country. And then I see another channel saying, oh, well, China, they have 5,000 years of history, but not 5,000 years of culture. Okay, so what is the truth? Really developed China or undeveloped China? Well, I think the truth is that just like a lot of people in America, they think that Africa is very undeveloped. South Africa is a bustling city, all right? There's a lot of development in certain areas where people are rich, and then there's lack of development in areas that are not rich. And so there's this divide of rich versus not rich, like the wheat and the chaff, all right? The rich taking advantage of the working class. And this is in any country. And a lot of countries, they use footage of like destitute areas of other countries to make them think that, all right, well, we're so good in this country, but then they don't show the developed areas in other countries that might be more developed. But then other countries show undeveloped areas in this country, and then they say, oh, well, look how much more we're developed kind of thing. But it's literally the ruling class trying to divide the countries, divide the people, and stay in power. That's what it actually is. And because in China, they outlawed most religions, and then they turn it into not a belief system, but just a religion, false religion, especially Christianity. And so all these people who actually believe in something, they're ostracized and stratified and taken advantage of and outcasts of society, while the rich and the people who back them and their regimes are the ones who get provision, all this stuff, and they're like, oh, everything's fine, but they're godless. It's a godless world by design, by the fallen angels and evil spirits trying to divide and conquer, both by classism in each country and then division of the countries, by keeping people from working together inside of the country and outside. Perpetual wars, perpetual death, sending good people out to war to get killed, just like King David, he sinned and sent Uriah the Hittite to take Bathsheba, his wife, kind of like that. And so once you realize the truth, you realize that this whole thing needs to stop, and when Christ comes back, that is what will happen.
Healthcare while
America place is not real. I'm telling you, it's a third world country with a Gucci belt.
So it's currently my first full day in Shanghai, and I am feeling like the US is a third world country. That's how the city is making me feel. Please look at where I am right now. This is a mall. That is a mall.
Alright, so I've been seeing a lot of chatter online, especially from my fellow Westerners who've spent some time in China, and the sentiment is pretty universal. Coming back home feels different, and not in a good way. For years, we've been fed this narrative about Western exceptionalism, especially American exceptionalism, about being the global leader. But when you've lived in a place like China, that narrative starts to unravel piece by piece. Today we're going to dive into some videos that perfectly capture this reverse culture shock, and we're going to back it up with cold, hard facts, because frankly, it's time for a reality check. Now they're paying for that lie with their health, their time, and their streets. The system was built to keep them blind.
Let's be honest, America is looking more and more like a third world country. Take a look at some of these photos of the New York City subways. They look nothing like a first world country. Now compare these photos to photos of subways in other major cities in the world. Dubai, Stockholm, Singapore, Tokyo, Warsaw, or even Moscow.
Or China. It's called investing in your public infrastructure, son.
Now, America is richer than all of these countries, so it's not a wealth problem, it's a people problem.
Bruh. No, it's quite literally a wealth problem. It's a matter of where that wealth is going. New York City is home to some of the richest people in the world. You're surrounded by wealth. Giant skyscrapers, ludicrously wealthy Wall Street investors. That is where the wealth of our country is being funneled. But under our unregulated capitalist system, everywhere that wealth accumulates, poverty accumulates as well. And we don't invest anything in taking care of our public infrastructure or taking care of our people. So you end up with things like a lot of homeless people in the subway, despite the fact that we're the richest country in the world. We don't use our country's wealth to take care of our people. It's a wealth problem, not a people problem. You're not got a problem with people like you saying that it's a problem with the people. People of the world unite.
I mean, just look at that. Modern, innovative. A testament to what happens when you actually build for the future. And the comments here are brutal but honest. The sentiment is the US needs to catch up ASAP.
If your capital city looks like the set of a zombie movie, do you still call it thriving? I've lived in Beijing for many years when it was alive. A city with swagger. You could feel it in the air. Neon lights in Sanlitun, street hawkers yelling over the smell of late-night skewers, businessmen closing deals over Peking duck at 2 a.m., diplomats brushing shoulders with hustlers who could sell you anything from fake Gucci bags to factory contracts. Now, it is a ghost city with propaganda posters. Beijing in 2025 is so dead. You can hear your own footsteps echo off glass towels that once pulsed with life. If your capital... Let me ask you something. If a guy told you his family business has been running smoothly for 5,000 years, through wars, invasions, regime changes, mass starvation, total cultural resets, and literal genocide, would you believe him? I don't think so. But somehow, when the Chinese Communist Party says China has 5,000 years of unbroken civilization, millions of people nod and say, wow, amazing. Well, today, I'm here to tear that myth apart, because this isn't just a bad take on history. It is the biggest lie propping up a regime built on ruins and cosplay. Let's get one thing straight. Civilization is not the same as history. Yes, the land we now call China has 5,000 years of history, but civilization? That means something else. It's not about ancient teapots or some dusty bronze tripod you saw in a museum. Civilization is about values, rational institutions, intellectual freedom, a functioning moral core. A civilization tolerates dissent. It protects truth. And when that core dies, even if all the buildings are still standing, even if you've got temples and ceremonial hats, you don't have civilization anymore. You've got memory, but no meaning. And you want to know when that happened to China? It started with a deer. There's an old story from the Qin dynasty known in Chinese as 指鹿为马, meaning point at a deer and call it a horse. One day, a power-hungry official named Cao Gao brings a deer to the emperor and says, "Behold, a fine horse." Now, some ministers nod nervously. "Yeah, a horse, obviously." Others blink and go, "Wait, my guy, that is a deer, not a horse." Guess what happened to the ones who told the truth? Executed. From that moment on, reality stopped mattering. Power rewrote truth, and everyone learned to lie in order to survive. It wasn't a glitch. It was the new software update. The Qin dynasty didn't unify Chinese civilization. It steamrolled it. Now, here's the part the CCP really doesn't want you to remember. The golden age of Chinese civilization happened when China wasn't even unified. That's right, the Spring and Autumn and Warring States period, 春秋战国, more than 2,000 years ago, was messy, chaotic, and downright bloody. 7 major states, dozens of minor ones, no central authority, non-stop warfare. Basically Game of Thrones, Eastern Edition. But it was intellectually glorious, the golden age of ideas. This was when Confucius taught about virtue and harmony. Lao Tzu wrote the Tao Te Ching and told everyone to chill out and follow the Tao. Mencius explored human nature. Mozi, Zhuangzi, Han Feizi, all debating what makes a just society. You had competing schools of thought, open debate, pluralism. It was messy, it was vibrant, it was civilized. And then came the Qin dynasty, which for the first time unified the entire China. And what was their first move? 焚书坑儒. Burn the books, bury the scholars, outlaw every philosophy that wasn't obey the emperor. Debate replaced with dogma. Truth replaced with fear. Unity came at the cost of civilization. And for the next 2,000 years, the script didn't really change. One emperor, one ideology, obey or die. People love to romanticize the Tang dynasty like it was some utopia of silk and poetry. And yes, it had great poets, great trade, culture booming, until it didn't. Because you know what else the Tang dynasty had? Court intrigue, so messy, it makes succession look like Sesame Street. Warlords carving up the empire like leftover duck, and Anlu San Rebellion, a civil war so massive it killed 40 million people, entire provinces wiped off the map. But sure, golden age. Just don't scratch the surface too hard or you will find a mountain of bones. Now let's talk about the 2 dynasties the CCP wants you to think were just ethnically diverse chapters in China's glorious history. The Yuan and Qin dynasty. Spoiler alert, they weren't Chinese. They were foreign occupiers who ruled China like it was a trophy they won in a raid. First up, the Mongols. In 1271, Kublai Khan, the grandson of Genghis freaking Khan, declared himself emperor of the Yuan dynasty. But he didn't become Chinese. He made China Mongol. Mongols were at the top. Han Chinese were at the bottom. The legal system was straight up racially tiered. You couldn't bear arms, couldn't marry a Mongol, couldn't even ride a horse unless you were elite enough. This wasn't inclusion. This was pure foreign occupation. Now, the Manchus. Fast forward to 1644. The Manchus swept in from the northeast and conquered Beijing. Different language, different customs, different worldview. They made Han Chinese shave their foreheads and wear a long braid, a queue, as a sign of submission. They ruled through censorship and fear. Many Chinese traditions and ideals were stomped into the dirt. But somehow we are still told the Qing dynasty was just another chapter of glorious Chinese civilization. No, it was ruled by the outsiders for more than 200 years. And just when you think Chinese civilization might claw its way back, we hit 1949. Enter the Chinese Communist Party. And what is their first move? A little something called the Cultural Revolution, which sounds like a music festival, but was actually a national meltdown. From 1966 to 1976, Confucius temples demolished, Buddhist monasteries smashed, Taoist priests beaten in the streets, ancient texts burned by the truckload, teachers and scholars tortured or killed. And we are supposed to believe this regime is now the guardian of 5,000 years of culture? No. The party didn't inherit Chinese civilization. It butchered it and then claimed the corpse. Today, they parade around in Hanfu robes, build Confucius statues, host tea ceremonies, and slap traditional values on state propaganda. But don't be fooled. The real Confucius would have been purged. The real Lao Tzu would have been jailed. The real Mencius would have been cancelled for spreading democratic Western idealism. This isn't tradition. It's a deer dressed up as a horse, just like Cao Gao planned it. So why push this myth? Because it's politically convenient. If you convince people you're the heir to 5,000 years of greatness, you don't need elections, consent, or even competence. You just say, we are China, we're great.
We're China, we're great. Where did I hear that before? It sounds like that demagogue in power of the United States. Make America great again.
And the lie becomes law. But let me say this clearly. The CCP is not China. And modern China is not nowhere near the level of ancient civilization. It's a dictatorship sitting on top of stolen ruins and burned books. China has 5,000 years of history, absolutely. But 5,000 years of unbroken civilization? That ended a long time ago, with books being burned, philosophers murdered, foreign emperors, and ideological purges. Civilization is about truth, ethics, freedom of thought. And when you kill those things, it doesn't matter how old your country is, you're not civilized. So don't be fooled by the temples, the incense, or the dragon costumes. Sometimes the most dangerous lie is the one wearing silk robes and quoting Confucius while rewriting him. If you're tired of fake history and real lies,
We've all been brainwashed. America is more like a third world country. However, most people have already denied Christ and eternal spiritual salvation and life in exchange for innovation from Satan. They're good without God, and they don't know their lives are full of fake emotions and thoughts from Satan and the fallen angels and evil spirits. Holier than thou mentalities. America has many Christians, but they're fake and watered down with sugar-coated prosperity gospel. Satan tries to isolate countries that have more Christians and try to make them more like a third world country. There's also more faithful Christians in other countries like China, where they've banned Christianity. They are incarcerated and tortured for their beliefs, while Satan's kids, little baby Babylon goats, roam their safe streets like developed China before they're all thrown into hellfire for eternity, while those faithful left without will inherit eternal life, love, and provision with heaven. In truth, when demagogues get into power with democracy or these different authoritarian governments, literally, the lies become law. So you have to get the truth in order to know the perspective of where you came from, in order to know where you're going. And also, he talked about, oh yeah, they buried the scholars and burnt the books, and we're living in, architecture that's already been set up. Well, before the flood, there may have been architecture that was already set up, and then afterwards, the world that was inhabited through Noah's lineage may have just re-inhabited that land and those architecture, and then they've made architecture around it. That's why you see all these big cathedrals, all this stuff all around. It's just, also there were giants living in the world, so they made giant buildings as well. And so the devil tries to erase history, his story before the flood, and then tries to make a fake history, lies, saying, oh, there are mud floods, or the millennial reign already happened, blah, 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 all this, when literally the genealogy from Adam to and Eve to Christ was 4,000 years, and then after Christ it's been 2,000 years, therefore we're at year 6,000 before the 7,000th year millennial reign. So a lot of Satan's little goat kids, Babylon goats, baby Babylon goats, okay, they are either compromised or part of the club, and they're being gatekeepers or controlled opposition, saying all these truths, and then they're putting all these lies in, like the fittest flat earther saying, oh, dragons for real. Dragon, like China, literally dragons came from a snake that was charmed by Satan, like angel wings, and then the snake's legs were taken away, so it started dragging itself across the ground. What is a snake with legs and wings? It's a dragon is what they call it. So the devil tries to drag people to hell with his lies. Repent.